think we've had any day this year session that we haven't had a full schedule. So we'll start with request of bills. Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two bills. First one is concerning parimutuel wagering relating to the tax revenue generated to the Horse Breeding Development Fund and the Horse Fair Racing Benefit Fund.
It's the same thing.
Senator Blasey, okay. Is there any questions on that legislation or request?
Yes. RS number was 1474, and it mirrors House Bill 2434.
Okay. Any questions? Any objection? Seeing none, we'll make the request.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Blasey.
And the second bill is regarding the privilege tax. It just mirrors recent changes that were made to the corporate tax.
Any questions? Any objection? We'll make the request. Thank you. Okay, committee will go ahead and start with the hearing on Senate Bill 247. Amelia, do you mind give us overview? Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senate Bill number 247 would provide a sales tax exemption for purchases by a not-for-profit corporation operating a community theater. The bill would amend KSA 793606 to provide a retailer sales tax exemption for all sales of tangible personal property purchased by a not-for-profit corporation that is exempt under 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code and operates a theater in the state of Kansas that provides, among other things, the creation and production of novel works for concerts or productions, employment of a full-time theater staff, and a commitment to providing ongoing live theater as an art form using available local resources. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book, and I would be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Amelia. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Our first conferee is Angela Cassette. Welcome to the Tax Committee.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Tyson and committee members. My name is Angela Cassette, and I am the Managing Director of Music Theater Wichita. Thank you for the invitation to testify in favor of passage of SB 247. In 2023, the nonprofit theaters in our state have survived and reinvented through the COVID-19 pandemic closures. At Music Theater Wichita, we are now focused on regaining crowds the size of our pre-pandemic numbers, 65,000 each summer. We are redoubling our efforts to educate children in our community, and we have examined our expense and revenue models. Our full-time equivalent employment is over 90, including 200 in the summer. Many work full-time for several months, and we also hire independent contractors, orchestra musicians, interns, and more. We bring money into our state and our county from the patrons who drive from Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, and Colorado, from patrons who travel from the coasts and everywhere in between 5 times during the summer to see their college-age performer on stage, and from employees who relocate to Wichita for the summer months. I have 3 things to share with the committee today as you consider this bill. First, we understand a reluctance to give exemptions to sales tax. You have been grappling with major issues like food tax for all Kansans, or you may worry that granting an exemption is a Pandora's box and will encourage additional requests. On that last point, I have good news. It is a true struggle to find other nonprofits in our state, especially arts and culture organizations that aren't already exempt. This bill is more about correcting an oversight. Our nonprofit theaters, perhaps because of our own failure to advocate for an exemption over the past decades, have been left behind as the state of Kansas used the sales tax exemption as a vote of confidence to bolster our other nonprofit entities. Second, it may seem awfully convenient for me to tell you that we'd take the money saved in sales tax and spend it on job creation. But we just went through a very tough budgeting process, and the areas where we had to hold back were on summer hires and upgrading summer positions. If relieved of our sales tax burden, the savings allows us to put that 1 to 2% of our annual budget into more summer jobs and hiring professional department heads in our carpentry shop, prop shop, and more, those poised to best educate our early career professionals. The relatively small dollar investment has a ripple effect felt by our community. And finally, I spent a lot of time in the lead up to this hearing trying to come up with various mathematical scenarios that would make this all seem like a no-brainer for the committee. Then I had a conversation with our board treasurer who reminded me that there's no spreadsheet or slide I could conjure that would convince you all that our sales tax exemption would have no impact on the state coffers. But your ongoing efforts to make Kansas a low-tax state is because you all believe that lower tax rates can be beneficial for our economy. Music Theater Wichita and our fellow nonprofit theaters believe we have earned your trust and your investment in us through the educational programs we offer, lifting up youth and helping prepare them for creative problem solving, as economic engines in our communities, drawing individuals to our cities, and by our continued investment in internships and early career professionals, developing and retaining talent in Kansas. We ask for the committee's support, both in voting yes on SB 247 and in helping us get a vote on the Senate floor. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you for your testimony. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next up is Mary Doveton. Welcome to the Tax Committee, Mary.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Tyson and members of the committee. I am Mary Doveton, the Executive Director of Theater Lawrence and also the founder of Theater Lawrence 45 years ago. I appreciate being invited to testify in favor of passage of Senate Bill 247. Theater Lawrence is one of a handful of Kansas theaters that function as 501c3 institutions and operate as small independent businesses. We're not part of any larger organization like the city, the county, or a university. Therefore, we are dependent on earned revenue from ticket sales, class fees, and rentals, as well as the donations and occasional grants that come in. Each year, Theater Lawrence partners with over 500 individual volunteers to create and deliver theater and education programs that engage community members and visitors of all ages and backgrounds as audience members and participants. We strive to provide local performers opportunities to hone their talents on stage and behind the scenes, and to encourage youth of all ages and backgrounds to explore new interests and stretch imaginations, and to engage all audiences with entertaining and thoughtful productions. Now, as part of the budget to make all of this happen, Theater Lawrence currently pays sales tax on everything it purchases, as well as on every ticket that it sells. In our location, that amounts to 10.3%. That's 10.3% on every stick of lumber that we buy, every cleaning product that we buy, and then we turn around and for every ticket that we sell to every show, we pay an additional 10.3%.
Mary, we have your written testimony. Would you mind just giving us an overview of it instead of reading it? And I know you're on a good roll, but we have 2 other hearings.
Okay.
Too. Thank you.
So 10 years ago, we raised $7.2 million from the community to build a new theater. Of that $7.2 million, less than 2% of that money came from public sources. All the rest came from donations from the businesses and the individuals in Kansas. In turn, we have reinvested in our community with hiring, with jobs, everything from musicians to accountants to laborers, all kinds of people. We also purchase almost everything locally, so all of that goes back into the community as well. Since the pandemic, as Angela said, we have suffered losses in our audience, so we have tried very hard to find ways to to build that back up. Well, let me put it this way. Woo, sorry. I'm sure many of you are homeowners. And you know that after you've been in a home 9 or 10 years, things start to go wrong. Things start to break down, cracks develop, all of those kinds of things. And that's kind of what we're experiencing right now. We're having to replace everything from drinking fountains to HVAC systems. We just spent over $40,000 to have our parking lot repaved. Okay, of that $40,000, about $4,000 went to sales tax. $2,000 of that amount of money went to state sales tax. Let me put it in perspective in terms of what we could have purchased with that $2,000 if we had had it in our budget. That $2,000 could have paid the salary of an office assistant for 6 weeks, or it could have bought an entire year's worth of plywood. In a year, that sales tax amount could add up. Again, let me give you an example from our programming. We have a program called the Penguin Project. And the Penguin Project partners kids with special needs with their normally developing peers. And they work together over the course of about 4 months. And during that time, they work to put on a musical. This year, we're doing Beauty and the Beast. Now, this program is free to every single child who participates. There is no fee. But obviously, when you're dealing with those populations, you need very specially trained people to lead them through that process. So the amount that we would save in state sales tax in a single year could pay all of the salaries for the folks that are leading that program. Now, I can't personally think of a better way to invest our state dollars than investing in children, in providing them opportunities to grow, to imagine, to laugh, to sing, to dance, while at the same time investing in our state's workforce.
Thank you, Mary. Committee, any questions? Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony. Do you pay local sales tax there in Lawrence?
Yes, we do.
What is that amount? I didn't see it in here.
The state sales tax is 6.5%, then we pay an additional 1% because of the location that we are in Lawrence. So that would get it up to
7.5.
7.5. So then the rest of that would be the city and county sales tax.
Have you asked for the city to eliminate your local sales tax?
Not recently.
But you have before?
We have discussed it, yes.
Okay. But they have declined to do that, is that correct?
Not formally, no. We have had very informal conversations.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator, any other questions, committee? Seeing none, thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
We have written testimony in support: Vicky Broke, Monty Dibben, Travis Grossman, Michael Spicer. Is there anybody else that would like to testify as a proponent? Seeing none, opponents, we have one written opponent, Spencer Duncan. Committee, I draw your attention to his testimony. Is there anybody that would like to testify in opposition? Seeing none, neutral, we have no written neutral testimony. Is there anybody that would like to testify neutral? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 247 and open the hearing on Senate Bill 227. Thank you, Amelia.
Madam Chair, Senate Bill number 227 relates to the collection and remittance of sales and compensating use tax and would allow a retailer in this state to retain the state rate of tax collected on movie ticket and concession sales commencing on July 1, 2023, and ending prior to July 1, 2025. The retailer would continue to remit the local portion of sales tax collected to the Department of Revenue. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book, and I would be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Amelia. Committee, any questions? Thank you. Committee, our first conferee is Bobby Bagby. Welcome back.
Thank
A
you.
couple
Thanks for
years,
having
but
me.
yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Bobby Bagby Ford. My family owns and operates movie theaters across the state and have been since 1924. If we make it, next year will be our 100-year anniversary. We operate theaters in places like Iola, Chanute, Emporia, Hutchinson, Junction City, Leavenworth, Dodge City for our smaller markets, and our larger markets of Topeka, Shawnee, and Overland Park. Those smaller markets that I named and several of the larger ones that I named all lost money in 2022. Not because people don't want to go to the movie, because they do. I'll tell you those stats in a minute, but because we were just lacking movies. We were lacking product. Hollywood always seems like this giant place, but in reality, there are only 3 major CGI houses and audio recording studios, and the backlog of trying to get streaming things in as well as movies into those houses to get them finished, because it's a long process, as you can imagine. There was just a huge backlog. And so as a result, movies kept getting pulled and pulled and pulled, in addition to, at the beginning of the year, Omicron, they pulled movies because they're located in Los Angeles, and so it's a very different world. And as a result, we just didn't have the movies to play in our movie theaters. To give you a little bit of perspective, in 2019, we had 112 movies that came out, and in 2022, we only had 71. Now, I know you can't control that, but what we do have, which is really exciting, is this year we're back up to 105 movies coming out, and in 2024, it should even be higher than that. The problem is, the last 3 years have been so devastating that those losses are just not sustainable. We only made 63%, those movies did, in comparison to 2019, and our profit margin is not that large. And so the losses have been so tremendously great. I think that if we can get some additional movies in, which it looks like we're going to, and some relief from the state, we'll be able to keep those smaller movie theaters open across the state. Movie theaters are such a fabric of our communities. They are the place that you go on your first date. It's the place that teenagers hang out. It's the place where senior citizens go to see 80 for Brady that opened this last couple of weeks. It is the fabric of the community. People then go and do other things in the community, like buy ice cream, they go to dinner after and before. It is the conversation piece and often the lifeline to the arts and the bigger world in those communities. They play such a critical role for social and economic fabric in those communities. This tax relief, I cannot tell you what a difference it would make. I am passionate about what we do. My great-grandfather started in 1924, and I hope that we're around for another 100 years of bringing the magic of the movies to our communities. But we desperately need your help. It was really, really devastating time. I'm proud that we've survived due to some of the relief that we did get, but it's just too great. It's sort of like the last year we've been in a grocery store and we had old cans of soup or maybe 5 new products, but a whole bunch of empty shelves. Now we have full shelves, but we are still digging out so much from the past. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I really encourage you to look at what movie theaters can bring to your community, and I hope that across the state, whether it's ours or you'll hear from some of my friends in the industry, they're just not going to be around in those markets due to the great losses of the last couple of years. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Committee questions. Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I gotta say, growing up, I loved going to the movies. I'm in Wichita. We had the Warren Theaters, which is now Regal. Unfortunately, the experience has changed a lot since Regal took over. But I guess when I hear people, like I haven't been to the movies probably since before COVID, and growing up, we go all the time, and I'm sure when my boys get older, they'll want to go to the movies. My question is, how do we make the experience what it used to be in terms of, it was fun, but now it seems like the price has gotten so much. I hear from people all the time just back home, like, going to the movie costs $50 just to take, a kid and your spouse. So how do we make it more affordable? And obviously you're trying to make profit here anyway, but it's just how do you make it balanced? Because unfortunately it's a very expensive entertainment nowadays for a lot of families.
Sure. So I will say, as far as out-of-home entertainment, it is still the least expensive option. So if you go to bowling or something, we are still considered the cheapest out-of-home entertainment. But also, we're really excited as an industry, and something we've been able to hold on to is industry-wide on Tuesdays, we have a discount day. So tickets start at just $5 pretty much at all locations. We are investing heavily, or have been investing as much as we could, certainly pre-pandemic, in our locations to create unique experiences. So we've added luxury heated recliners to many of our locations. We have in our Overland Park location and Shawnee location, for instance, we have Screen X, which has screens on all three sides. We have chairs that move.
Rein you in back on the bill,
Sure.
on the tax, because we are short on time.
Sure,
I
of
do
course.
Appreciate the question. Are there other questions? Senator Reddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I was wondering, in this day and age, even if if this bill moves forward and such, is it going to be helpful when a lot more people are streaming their movies and such? They're not even going to a regular movie theater. So I want to know if this would impact the way you're envisioning it to impact. The trends are accelerating dramatically towards streamlining and watching them more at home. So I just want to have your
Of course. Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So what is interesting is COVID gave the studios and all of the streamers a really unique opportunity to try things. I have lots of quotes in my written testimony. I hate to waste the time to read them. You're certainly welcome to. That all of the major studios have now said they will be primarily releasing theatrical versus going to streaming because it just failed for them. Also, we have seen the trend. So if you look at in 2019, the average title nationally grossed $90 million. And in 2022, it grossed $91 million. So we didn't have enough product, but people were still coming to the movie. Our attendance levels actually aren't decreasing. It's just we need the product. There's a lot of headlines out there about streaming, but what we've found is that content consumers are content consumers. It's the same group of people. So if you love watching movies, you're the same people who watched them at home and in the theater. I will also say one very quickly that a lot of the streaming companies, The Chosen, which is a faith-based title that is a miniseries, they actually came to our industry, and we just recently aired the opening series opening and the closing of that series because they wanted to be on our movie theater screen. So I think that the trend of that is shifting. The information that's out there, the studios that are watching that profit margin, they're actually leaning more towards our industry, which is great as long as we can get their product. People come to the movies when there is movies. And there's been a lot of negative headlines, but if you look the last couple of even months, there's been really positive ones. Of course.
So to follow up on Senator Blasey's question, wouldn't it be more beneficial if this tax cut occurred to actually return it to the patrons instead of putting it in the theater's coffers?
I understand that can seem like that, but the problem is that those movie theaters simply might not make it to the fact that we have enough movies by the end of the year. So if we don't have an option for them to go to, if those smaller locations close, they won't reopen. It's just too big and expensive of an endeavor. And so by allowing us to remain open until we get the steady stream of product, then people can continue to enjoy the magic of the movies, as we say. But if they close, they will be closed for good.
Thank you. Committee, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very
Did you
much.
apply for the property tax relief for businesses that were shut down?
We did, and that was certainly helpful and allowed us to help get us to this point.
That was much more money than what this would be.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay.
We lost a lot, though.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby. Next up is Derek Hine. Written. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Derek. So I'll refer the committee to his testimony. Scott, I should have this, Zaremba, and I should know it. Actually, I use your gas station, so.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, committee. My name is Scott Zaremba. I own something very unique, which is the oldest operating purpose-built cinema in the world, not just in Kansas, not just in Franklin County, but the world. And we got that certified in 2018 by the Guinness Book of World Records. And so our little theater in Ottawa, pre-pandemic, was a real, it's just a gem inside our community. And so we're working very hard to keep it and keep it operational and keep it functional, because we're at 116 years and counting. Really, we're at 118 years, but we couldn't find the paperwork. It burnt in one of the fires. So we've been through war, we've been through flood, we've been through 2 pandemics, right? Not just one, because it's been open that long. But we have a very interesting time because of the pandemic and what happened to the industry. It has made it very difficult, as you heard in the prior testimony, in order for us to be profitable in what we're doing. We're close. We're very close to coming back. The patrons are returning. But we need just a little push to get us in the next 2 years where the studios can get caught up making movies, somebody they want to see, and bring it back to the community. We're a very small, we're 2 screens, but we have a huge impact in the community because when they come out, they do other things, right? They don't just come to the movie, they're having dinner, they're doing other things. And so all we're looking for is to keep those tax dollars right where they were produced, and keep them right there so we can go back and pay our employees and pay our accelerated expenses. As you know, our expenses didn't go down, they've actually gone up. Just because we didn't have patrons, our expenses were still there. And so that's all we're looking for, is just a little bit of relief until we can get everything back lined up again. And we are seeing them come back. You know, everybody can watch everything on their phone, just like I do, but the experience and having that experience is something that everybody relishes. And they enjoy. And that's all we're looking to do and keep in our community. So if you've got any questions, I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Scott. And when they frequent your theater, they can also enjoy the museum as they're going through it. So committee, any questions for Scott? Seeing none, thank you. Committee, we have written testimony by Todd Halstead. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any neutral? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 227. Committee will open the hearing on Senate Bill 127. And it was a coincidence that all these bills end in 7. But it was not a coincidence on their theme and topics.
Morning again, Madam Chair. Senate Bill number 127 would authorize Dickinson County to submit to its electors the question of imposing a countywide sales tax at the rate of 0.25% and pledging the revenue received for the purpose of financing the cost of public safety capital projects. The provision in the bill would provide that the tax would expire after 5 years from the date it was first collected, and it could be extended or reenacted for additional 5-year periods upon submitting the question to the electors again. All revenue from the levy would be remitted to the county, and the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book. I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? And I do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
And they have selected, because of legislation that we passed last year, for the amount to go completely to the county. Is that correct? Otherwise, it would have had to been split.
As you recall, there is a provision in KSA 70, or it's not 79, it is, I'm going to find it is KSA 12192 that does provide for an apportionment of countywide sales tax between the counties and the cities that are located within the county. That is kind of the default provision, unless there is another provision that accepts a levy from that. And if you look at page 19 of this bill, there would be a provision added that would accept this levy out of that apportionment formula. So the entire amount of this levy would go to the county.
Thank you. I just want to make that clear because I know that issue is confusing for many. They don't realize they're voting on a countywide tax, and some of them are being distributed between the towns and cities within the county.
And there is, I was going to note for you, I just needed to find where the language was. There was an amendment, I believe it was last year or the year before, that they are to include in their question where the money is to go. You are correct.
So it
Yes.
makes it clear. I
Yes.
just want the committee to understand. So thank you, Amelia. Committee, any other questions? Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This includes all food sales?
Yes, because
Yes,
it
it
is a
would, because
county.
it would
I didn't
be-
mean to answer.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was like, yes, it would. Because it is a countywide sales tax.
Yes. Unless Senate Bill,
Exactly.
yes, passes, then that would, yes, take care of it. Committee, Senator Reddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is for us to give authority for them to put it on their ballot for their voters to vote on. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That is correct,
Okay,
yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sorry. Committee, any other, Senator Peck would like to clarify that the election has not occurred. We have seen that before.
That is my understanding of the situation, is that no, an election has not been held. They are coming to the legislature for the authority to hold an election.
Yeah, they're actually doing it correctly. Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Janelle Dockendorf, welcome to the Tax Committee.
Good morning. I will be brief. Good morning. Chair Tyson, committee members, thank you for the opportunity to present testimony on Senate Bill 127, and thank you to Senator Claes for introducing this to us, or for us. As we've discussed briefly, we are requesting to submit a question to the Dickinson County voters on a 1/4-cent sales tax, and this would be to replace a 26 years of age radio communication system. So a total of 18 services, which include fire, law enforcement, EMS, emergency management, and local government, would be utilizing this system. All emergency response began with radio communications. And in Dickinson County in 2022, we received over 45,000 calls for service. Of that, 26,000 plus calls went for fire, law enforcement, and EMS. The system that we currently have, which has worked quite well for us, but it's reached the end of its useful life. Parts are hard to get, and I know that you've seen that in other dealings that you've had. It does not provide the coverage that we need. Technology has changed, and the best example that I have is the cell phone. If you think of back 20 years ago what the cell phones were like, what we currently have, in that short period of time, look at the technology that's changed. That's changed. The other piece is jurisdictions around us have upgraded to an improved radio system. So Saline County to the west, Geary County to the east, Marion to the south, and Clay to the north. So essentially, Dickinson County is in a donut hole. We cannot communicate with those surrounding counties in the emergency response. Just this last year, we had a grass fire in Marion County, and we have mutual aid agreements. We had fire departments responding, both staffed and volunteer services. They weren't able to communicate. So that's a pretty scary situation for our fire departments when they're in that. What we currently need would be to upgrade our communication system and add 2 towers in the county. One in Abilene, which would cover the northern part of the county, and one in Harrington, which would cover the southern part of the county. This would also give us the ability to upgrade technology and equipment when technology deems that it's necessary that we upgrade those. So the solution that we've come up with is to move to the 800 state radio system, purchase the 2 towers, and then purchase radios for the 350 staffed and volunteer first responders that we have in our county. We're estimating that the total project cost would be $2.812 million. Of that, the towers would cost $1.37, radios about $860,000, and then a 5-year annual maintenance of $583,000. If Dickinson County citizens approve the sales tax, we're estimating that we would generate about $675,000 annually. So over the 5 years, it would be $3.3 million. which would cover that, and then leave us some monies in the coffers for annual maintenance or for another public safety project. In our discussions, we feel like it's not in the best interest of our citizens for a property tax increase at this time. You see that when you go to the grocery store, when you go to the gas station, things like that. So a sales tax question would spread this out not only over our citizens, but for any travelers passing through Dickinson County. Dickinson County is intersected by Interstate 70, Highway 15, 18, US 77. And those travelers over the years have oftentimes used our emergency services. So we feel like that this would be a fair tax. If the citizens did not approve the sales tax question based on the numbers that we're using in our current budgets, it would take the county 40 years to accumulate enough money to pay for this system. I would ask for your support for Senate Bill 127, and I would be happy to stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Committee questions? I have a couple. Senator Baumgardner.
What are you budgeting for your campaign for this?
Currently, we're putting $75,000 annually aside in our budget.
For the campaign for the tax vote?
Oh, for the tax vote? No, we have not put any money aside for that. We're getting ready to start on our new budget, and we will put money aside then. I don't have those numbers yet since we're just starting this.
Committee, any other? So I have a couple of comments that you made. 40 years to pay for the system, that seems to me like it's not a priority for the county then.
Well, it is, but there are so many other projects that we have, and it's difficult to parcel out monies to set aside for that. You know, our road and bridge projects are extremely expensive. We've got noxious weed departments. We're looking for staff. It's just making sure that we've got money to fill those needs, emergency services, things like that.
So noxious weeds is a priority over I'm just.
No, absolutely, and I understand that,
you
yes.
said.
We're following the guidelines from the state for noxious weed control, and I just lost an employee in the noxious weed department, so it takes time to train that. We're also currently looking for staff in our jail and emergency services and our highway department, kind of trying to spread the money out a little bit.
So what is your county sales tax now?
The county's portion is 1.5, of which 0.5 goes specific to road and bridge projects. And then the 1% is the standard. So overall, just depends on which city you're in, but we're in that 7.5% on average.
That you're divvying out. Yeah, I think
And
people
one
might
thing
be
I
aware
would
of that.
clarify, though, is since this is a countywide project and the 18 services do include all of our cities, all of our volunteer fire departments, city governments, and that. So it's spread across the entire county.
So I would also suggest some updates to your election equipment too. You guys had major breakdowns.
We just purchased new equipment for that.
Okay. Did the county remain revenue neutral or did they increase?
We just slightly went above the revenue neutral rate, like 0.001%,
So you did raise property tax?
just a touch.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Reddy.
Thank you. So being new to this, typically provided by home rule, when the city raises their property tax or has a sales tax ballot initiative, we typically don't come to the legislature and ask, is this something for counties that they come and ask?
So Senator Reddy, it is typical for counties. Counties have a 1-cent cap, but cities have a 3-cent cap. Most cities are not near their cap, but the counties, most counties are pushing their cap. And the way that we've treated this in the past, at least this committee has, is if they're willing to go to a vote of the people, we try to get these through. I wish that we would have had this last year. We passed a bunch of them last year and they went through very easily. Not saying we can't do that this year. I don't know where we'll land.
Appreciate that.
I'm not going to speak for the committee. We'll definitely debate it, but Senator Reddy, that is the pattern. But I want to make sure that they're looking out for the best interests of the taxpayers too when they come through this process.
Thank you for the clarification, Madam Chair. I was thinking because the voters end up voting on it, when we talk about promotional campaigns and such, typically they show up and ask a ton of questions. But I was not accustomed to this type of a process for a county. So I appreciate the clarification and the education in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support the bill. I think it's important to allow the voters of Dickinson County to decide what they want to do. I'm just curious, and I'm sure you've done this, but I was going to ask, have you guys looked at grants, like federal grants? I mean, wildfires is a big thing. It's a growing issue here in the prairie, and I'm just curious if there's grant money out there that you could try to grab onto.
And our fire departments are looking at that, but it is restricted to the fire service. So that could be a piece of this. And we definitely are open to that possibility.
And yes, there's another grant program that I would recommend for most and it's Can Step. I don't think most communities take advantage of it. You have to have skin in the game. So it's not just free money, but there is a match on it that is something you can look at. Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
We have no other, would you like to testify for the bill or? Okay. I know you're down as written only, but I thought,
I'm sorry, my name's Chancey Smith. I'm the Emergency Management Director for the county.
okay,
I've worked in the county for 18 years. I'm really familiar with our radio system that we currently have. And as Janelle said, Janelle can give you the numbers and everything. I can just tell you the personal side of it. I work directly with 12 fire departments, 3 law enforcement agencies, and 2 EMS services. We are surrounded by all of the communities around us utilize the 800 radio system. We do not. We have a VHF radio system, which is limited in distance traveled, so the north end of the county has difficulty talking to the south end of the county and vice versa. But we work so hard now with mutual aid due to the shortage of firefighters. Volunteers just aren't happening like they used to. So we mutual aid so much, even between our counties, different fire departments help each other out, and that's the only way we can survive that. And when we cross county lines, we have no communications with these people. We do have these large grass fires where we need a lot of help. We're calling in air tankers to come in. It's so dangerous to drop water from the air when you can't tell the firefighters, you got to get out of the trees. We can't get a hold of them. So what we've been doing is I'll set out on the top of a hill and I have 5 radios in my car and I'm communicating back and forth with everybody, trying to keep people safe. It is a life safety thing for us to have better communications, and we just need the ability to do that. So letting our taxpayers pick it would be instrumental to us. So I do appreciate you guys listening to us today.
so Director Smith, would you mind submitting written testimony for the record?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Committee, any questions? I just am disappointed to see the 40 years. You're saying it's a priority, it's emergency, we need it, but then they're saying, oh, if we don't get this, it'll take 40 years. It seems like the left hand's not communicating with the right.
I think the 40 years is because the money that the county brings in is allocated to go here, and it's already spent, and it would take that much to set aside to pay the more than $1 million for that. Like I said, I'm not a money man. I'm a person that works out there utilizing these radios, and I just know how much we do need them in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tyson.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents for the bill? Seeing none, committee, I'll draw your attention to the written testimony. There's several. Any opponents to the legislation? Any neutral? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 127. Committee, we're out of time today. I would like to work some of those bills that we've heard this week. Is there any objection to 127 being worked now? Well, we'll just save it. I usually hold them over a day at least, so we'll wait. We'll wait. Committee, we are not, is there any other business to be brought before us? Seeing none, we're adjourned.